Hello guys, this is your friend Fanfic Cage 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If God-like Naruto Got Married with Yugao Yugito, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. A young boy of 5 could be seen running down a dark alley. The boy was small, and covered in dirt. His golden hair had flecks of brown from the dust. His orange suit he found in the trash stained black with grime and filth. His face covered in dirt as shouts could be heard behind. The young boy's eyes were filled with fear, hate, disgust, anger, and loneliness. The boy rounded a corner to see the alley opened up into a wide street. "Get back here, you demon!" shouted a person in the crowd as they just saw the boy sprint out of the dark alley and into the bright street. The boy was running as hard as he could. He turned a corner as he ran aimlessly. As soon as he turned a corner he felt a tug from behind. Instantly, he was pulled out of light, and was covered in darkness. The boy tried to scream, but found a hand over his mouth keeping the sounds from escaping. The boy was slowly dragged back, as he saw the crowd race past the shadows that veiled him. "Where did that demon brat go?" shouted one individual with anger laced through his words. Suddenly, a scream was heard in the distance to the boy's right. "That must be him," shouted another individual in the crowd, as they swung back around, and raced off towards the noise. The boy was now thrown back away from the light to see 3 individuals with masks on. One man wore a mask of a serpent, another with a dog, and the last with a bird mask. Each one of them wore a long black cloak with a hood that hid their hair. Everything was covered except for their eyes. "Today must be our lucky day, huh guys?" spoke the serpent in a deep gruff voice. "Yeah, not every day we catch ourselves the demon fox," spoke the bird. "Hey, watch your tongue, bird, you know what Hokage Dono said about using that name," spoke the dog warily. "As long as no one finds out about it, then I'm good," spoke the bird nonchalantly as he drew a katana from his side. "That aside, how about we teach Naruto here a lesson?" spoke the snake. "Naruto, don't use that name, this here doesn't own that name. This thing here only owns one name. Isn't that right, demon? Or maybe his name is Monster," shouted the dog as he punched the boy named Naruto in the stomach. "Yeah, you're right. Hey, Monster, this is for my friends and family 5 years ago," shouted the bird as he stabbed the boy in the stomach. The boy stayed silent as his eyes were only filled with one thing, anger. The 3 masked men took turns hitting, cutting, and stabbing the boy for several minutes. "Hey, I got a new jutsu to test out, can I do it on demon?" asked the snake. "Why, of course, but right after I do this. Chidori," shouted the dog as his hand was covered in blue sparks. He thrusted the hand cloaked in blue through the boy's stomach, causing the boy to cough up a little more blood. "Wow, that is nice, but my turn now. Earth style. 1000 spike prison," shouted the serpent as he slammed his right palm onto the floor. A moment later small earth spikes jutted out from just about every angle, piercing Naruto's flesh slightly. None of the spikes hit a vital organ, or any deadly thing in or on the boy, but it did hurt like hell to him. The boy knew that if he spoke he would receive even more pain, so he was determined to stay quiet without even letting a whimper escape his lips. He stared at them defiantly as the sun started to rise. "Damn, Fox Day is over," spoke the dog as the 3 body flickered away from a young boy. Moments later the spikes that were piercing Naruto's skin receded back into the ground and building. After several minutes all of the injuries from the beating healed. He stayed put for a while till he drifted asleep. When he woke up he looked at his stomach to see the wound from the dog's chidori fully healed. While he still felt sore from the beating he knew he would be fine. After all, he was always fine. Even after all that had befallen the young soul he persevered. "Hey Q-chan, you there?" asked the boy out loud as he dusted himself off. "Yeah Naruto-san, what do you need?" asked the fox inside of the boy. "Why does everyone hate you? I mean, you seem really nice to me, so why do they do this?" Asked the boy in his head. I'll answer your question with a question. How many seal masters exist in Konoha? Asked the beast inside of Naruto's head. 1, thought the boy quietly. Right now no, the toad sage isn't in Konoha, there are none. So would you trust something you didn't understand? Asked the Kyuubi calmly as it waited. It depends, answered the boy calmly. Exactly, and in this case the distrust is at the level of hatred, so I will give you 2 options to this problem, spoke the beast calmly. What are the options? Naruto asked skeptically. The first is that you leave Konoha, and either I train you, or we find someone else to. The other option is that we stay, and you endure the glares, beatings, scorn, and verbal abuse while I train you secretly. It's up to you, responded the beast calmly. I want to stay, and learn from you, responded the young boy while flinching in anticipation of the possible rage of the red-headed fox. If that is what you want, although you may regret it later, but onto the first order of need to get you training supplies, and I doubt that stupid Hokage will get you any. So what you're going to have to do is find the items, spoke the Kyuubi in response to the boy with a loud sigh afterwards. Okay, what do I need to get? You are going to need some kunai, shurikens, senbons, paper, and some ink. Also if you find a weapon of some sort that would help a lot. Okay, I'll start right now, thought the boy with determination as he set off to find all that the Kyuubi had told him to get, as well as some food. The boy looked around frantically for anything that might be of use in training. He searched high and low, and in any trash can he could find. He searched on the floor of the city. Yet all his wandering only produced 3 kunais, a single shuriken, and 5 senbons. He managed to find several scrolls with writing on them that he couldn't read due to being illiterate, and he found a brush. Even though he found a brush to write seals out, he did not find any ink for the seals. His hopes though rose greatly that day. He had found several loaves of fresh burnt bread after a new apprentice at the bakery overcooked the pieces. He had also managed to find a half-eaten apple. All in all, Naruto called the day a successful day. After eating the apple and taking a few bites out of his 3 loaves of bread, he went to the top of the Hokage monument, and he went into the forest above. He walked in the dense oak-ridden place for several minutes till he came upon a single ginkgo tree. He quickly ran up to it till he found a small depression in the wood. He pressed his palm up against it. Hey Q-chan, can you please push some chakra into my right hand? Yeah, give me a second, I just woke up, spoke the redhead with a loud yawn. Why do you sleep so much? Asked the boy curiously as a small amount of red enveloped his right hand. Because you are constantly getting hurt, so I have to keep you healthy, spoke the Kyuubi in a slightly angered voice. Okay, spoke the boy quickly as to not increase the sleepy demon's wrath any more. After a few more moments, a loud crack sound could be heard. Naruto looked behind him to see the floor start to open. He quickly ran into the opening as it had begun to shut. As he entered the dark room, it suddenly lit up in a brilliance of red, yellow, and orange. He walked down the stairs, and into a small plain room that had several chairs, a table, and several seals on the white walls. The boy quickly walked across the tile flooring to the nearest seal with his right hand still covered in crimson. He pushed his red hand up against the seal, and out came a small picture. It was a picture of his family. Yes, he had learned of his heritage from the Kyuubi about a year ago. Flashback. Where is that brat? Shouted a nearby man as Naruto hid in a dumpster. Suddenly, the darkness that hid Naruto was taken away as light replaced the interior of the green container. We found you, demon fox, shouted a woman as she grabbed the young boy and pulled him out of the trash. She then threw him as hard as he could against the wall, and Naruto groaned slightly, but aside from that made no sounds as he sat himself up. He held his aching left side, and looked up at the dozens of people who had been chasing him on National Fox Hunt Day. Each and every one of the villagers' eyes were filled with hate, anger, and happiness as to the revenge they were about to take on the blonde. Time to punish the little monster, spoke a round man with a pitchfork in hand, and an evil glint in his eyes. He started to stab the boy while others cut, stabbed, punched, or kicked him at the same time. After several hours of torture, they left a bloodied mess behind them that slowly rose. I can't believe the fourth would do this to you, and that Kushina let him, sighed the demon fox. What do you mean? It's not like the fourth was my dad, spoke the boy weakly as red chakra started to seep out of his wounds, and cover them, speeding up the healing process. Actually, the fourth was your father, and Kushina Uzumaki as your mother, trailed off the woman as Naruto interrupted. Why didn't anyone tell me who my parents were? They didn't tell you to protect you. Now just get up, and go get some food. Chicken bone, shouted an angry fox at the blonde. Flashback end. The boy looked at the picture for several minutes. He sealed it back into the scroll along with everything else as he left the base. When he got out, it was nearing midday, so he went back into the city to look for more training material. On Naruto's way out of the forest, he encountered a small blue-colored beast with long hair. The beast was about as tall as a trash can, and was currently marking his territory. After a moment, the blue-furred beast lifted its snout into the air and sniffed. Suddenly, the beast growled in Naruto's direction. Get out here now, I know you're behind that tree, shouted the beast angrily as Naruto. At this point, Naruto stepped out of cover, and stared at the creature that looked similar to a wolf, dumbfounded. You can talk? Asked the slightly confused boy. Course I can talk, now who the are you? Shouted the beast with its upper lip curled up. I'm Naruto, and you are? Spoke the boy calmly as he puffed his chest out to look a little bigger. The name's you, shouted the beast as it lunged at Naruto. The boy quickly sidestepped the beast, and jumped back, dodging a swipe at his abdomen. The boy quickly picked up a stick that was 3 inches in diameter and about a meter long. He quickly raised it as he readied himself for the beast. Naruto-kun, let me take over this. You don't know how to fight, spoke the Kyuubi as the boy nodded. In an instant, the boy's blue eyes turned to a slitted crimson. His hair stained the color of blood, and his canines grew several inches as well as sharpening slightly. Give up now before you won't be able to even more, spoke the young boy in a demonic-like voice while staring at the beast with a maniacal smile. The beast just whimpered as its tail went between its legs, and the creature laid on the floor in a sign of submission. Please don't hurt me, I just was trying to gauge your strength, Alpha, spoke the beast meekly as it tried to get even closer to the floor. Just as this happened, the boy reverted back to normal as Naruto regained possession of his body. What is your name, and what are you? Asked Naruto calmly as stared at the still crouched beast. My name is Ice Fang, and I am a northern flame wolf, spoke the beast as it looked at Naruto. How can you be a flame wolf with a name like that? Asked the boy, not understanding till he looked in the wolf's eyes. They were filled with sadness and loneliness, just like his own. I would prefer not to talk about it, spoke the wolf, quickly dodging the topic. You have 2 options, Ice Fang. The first is I kill you, spoke the blonde, which got a look of extreme fear onto the blue wolf's face. The second is you submit to me, and become my friend. Naruto spoke as he showed a genuine smile. The blue wolf responded with a bark, and ran over to sit in front of his alpha. I choose the second one, Alpha, shouted the beast in excitement as his eyes were filled with joy. Alpha? No, just call me Naruto, spoke the young boy. No, Alpha is Alpha, shouted the wolf with a face that looked like a pout. Okay, spoke the boy, raising his hands up defensively while having a sweat drop. After a few moments, and talking, the two set out to get more material for training. Young Naruto, who was now accompanied by his newest companion, Ice Fang, walked into town as Kyuubi had told Naruto that they still needed more equipment for his training. As he started to check the trash can, he found some ryo just lying on the floor, so Naruto grabbed it in hope of either using it for training supplies or food. The boy walked around a little more just to find nothing, not even a scrap of food. The boy walked out of the alley with his head leveled due to not finding anything, but still keeping his hopes high. While the boy and his wolf companion were searching through some more trash, they heard yelling. As if on cue, a girl no older than 13 with violet eyes and purple hair tied behind her head wildly much like the young boy's hair appeared in mid-sprint towards the direction he had just come from. She had a beige coat on that was obviously several sizes too large, a brown shirt underneath the coat, and a matching mini skirt. She wore violet ninja sandals that went up to her knees. Yet, the two most prominent feature of the girl was her beauty and the Konoha headband that adorned her forehead. Her purple bangs covered the headband slightly, and the hair that wasn't tied back fell to her shoulders, framing her beautiful face. "I'm gonna get you, Anko-san," shouted a brunette in a playful tone who looked the same age as the girl now known as Anko. The girl chasing the purple-haired child had her hair tied back in a ponytail behind her, with two stray bangs falling just below her chin. The bangs were just beyond the corner of her eyes. She had two red fangs tattoos on either cheek that reached just above her chin. She had on the same outfit as her purple-haired friend, but the coat she wore was the correct size. Her Konoha headband was around her neck. Behind the brunette followed a dog who was slightly larger than Ice Fang, and had a gray pelt while its underbelly was painted white. "You'll never catch me, Hana-chan," laughed Anko as she suddenly tripped on her larger cloak, skidding to a halt a few meters from Naruto. "Ha ha ha," laughed the brunette who was just as beautiful as Anko. "Hana-san, did we get her?" shouted a black-haired beauty with eyes as crimson as blood. She wore the same outfit as Hana, so the three girls had matching, or close to matching outfits in Anko's case of an overly large coat now colored slightly black due to her fall. The black-haired beauty had her headband around her forehead like Anko. However, the girl's hair was not bound by anything, and just flowed in the wind, looking as if she had not brushed her hair that morning. The three girls started laughing together like friends normally would till the gray-colored dog barked in Naruto's direction. They turned their attention to the reason the dog was barking to see young Naruto standing there in a daze while a blue-pelted wolf stood in front of him protectively. Who are you?" asked the girl named Anko as she looked at him plainly. The boy took a step back in fear as he recognized the Konoha headband that were only worn by ninjas. Ninjas like the dog, snake, and bird. Ninjas that at least in Naruto's eyes were evil. Now mind you, he didn't think all ninjas were evil, but most of them, as his dream was to become a ninja that protected people weaker than him. That way no one would ever have to go through what he did. "Hey, there's no need to be afraid, little one," spoke the brunette reassuringly as she put her hands out while slowly approaching the scared little boy. Naruto didn't believe their words. He rarely believed anyone's word now. Especially after how the orphanage treated him a year ago. They threw him out due to budget costs, but he didn't care, at least not anymore. As the girl named Hana slowly approached, Ice Fang barked out at her angrily as he started to snarl at the child. Hana noticed the creature, and looked at him with surprise. She then looked at the boy with only curiosity in her eyes as she spoke. "Where did you find him?" Silence followed for several seconds as the boy started to slowly back up. Suddenly, he turned, and Naruto sprinted away as fast as he could with Ice Fang struggling to keep up. As soon as he made a dash for it, the three ninjas started to chase him as they had several questions for the boy who clearly needed a bath. The ninjas were slowly gaining on him due to their age and experience that was until Naruto came up with an idea. He looked behind him to see Ice Fang just behind him. Naruto slowed pace till he was right next to the blue creature. He jumped onto the beast back much to the wolf's surprise. "Q-chan, I need help," spoke Naruto in his mind as the kunoichi chasing him were now a few yards behind him. "Okay, but you owe me big time, kid. You owe me very big," trailed off the fox just as Ice Fang and Naruto were suddenly enveloped in a cloak of red. Ice Fang didn't question it as they suddenly doubled in speed. The kunoichi stared in disbelief, but instead of giving up decided to chase him as if he was the demon cat Tora. They looked at each other, and nodded as they suddenly split off into different directions while only Anko stayed chasing him. After several minutes of running he had lost the ninja, so he sat down next to a wall. Ice Fang next to him as the beast breathed heavily from all of the sudden running. Naruto put his hand on the dog's head, and started to rub him as the beast looked at him happily. Naruto, come here, spoke Q-chan as he was suddenly dragged into his mindscape. Naruto now found himself surrounded by a lush forest as Q-chan sat behind a thicket. She had crimson hair that was in 9 separate ponytails. 7 of the 9 stayed behind her head while 2 draped over her shoulder, 1 on either side falling to her elbows. Her crimson eyes were held in contrast to her plain kimono whose color matched Naruto's sapphire blue eyes perfectly. What do you need, Q-chan? Asked the young boy as he hadn't have seen Kyuubi in a long time. Nothing, just trying to help you a little bit, she spoke as suddenly Ice Fang appeared out of nowhere. The beast looked around wildly before running off in a random direction to check out the trees. Why's Ice Fang here? To help you. There has always been one fatal flaw with companions, and that is the need to talk out in the open. So I brought you both here to fix that. Now that you both have seen each other in this place, you will be able to talk to him just like you do with me. Now I suggest you leave before you lose your head, spoke Kyuubi as she vanished, and Naruto found himself in his world. The boy had his eyes closed as he felt something cold against his throat. He opened his eyes to see a kunai to his throat as 3 pairs of eyes stared at him. Naruto quickly looked to the side to see the gray dog staring Ice Fang down. Oh man, I just want to rip his throat out, shouted Ice Fang into Naruto's head. Calm down, Ice Fang. Naruto spoke back as the beast suddenly looked at him inquisitively. Was that you, Alpha? Asked the blue wolf. You better believe it's me, spoke the blonde as the beast started to back up till he could feel Naruto with his tail. Now that you made us chase you, you better answer our questions, shouted Anko angrily as she stared down the boy. Calm down, Anko-chan, spoke the black-haired girl. Who are you? Spoke Anko, ignoring the other girl's words as she pressed the kunai into his throat just a bit harder, but not cutting his skin. Back away from Alpha, shouted Ice Fang as she suddenly leapt at the purple-haired woman. Just as he did, the other dog jumped at him, hitting him in mid-air, causing the two to fight. Did that dog just talk? Asked Anko wide-eyed as she looked in disbelief at the blue wolf who was now pinned to the ground by the larger beast. So I'm not the only one who heard it? Asked the black-haired girl. No, you heard right, Kurenai-chan. After all, he is a northern fire wolf. That's why I asked. Where did you find him? Asked Hana as she looked into the blonde's eyes sternly. I found him in the woods. PP, please don't hurt him, stuttered the blonde as he looked at the 2 dogs in fear. We won't. Now why don't you tell us your name, and where you live? Spoke the brunette kindly as she pulled Anko's kunai from the boy's neck. Naruto saw this, and decided to trust them a little. I'm Naruto, spoke the boy meekly. And where are your parents? Asked Kurenai. Naruto merely hung his head low at this question as the 3 put 2 and 2 together, looking at the boy sadly. Where is your orphanage? Asked Anko in a softer, kinder tone as she looked at him with caring eyes. I live out here, spoke the boy plainly, much to the girls' disbelief as they stared wide-eyed. That's not possible. I mean, how can a 4-year-old take care of himself? Spoke Hana after recovering from her shock. I'm 5, and you'd be surprised, spoke the boy angrily. The girls looked at each other in disbelief at hearing this boy say he was actually a 5-year-old than what they thought was a old 3, maybe young 4-year-old. You sure don't look 5, kid, spoke Anko teasingly. Anko-chan, shouted Hana-eyed disbelief at the way her friend was treating the malnourished boy. Well, he is. So what if he looks young? You can still show manners. Maybe you two should calm down, spoke Kurenai suddenly as she approached Naruto slowly like a cat stalking a mouse. Naruto started to panic once more as his head was filled with images of beatings, but what he got instead was a surprise all its own. The black-haired girl was embracing him. His head was in her chest, hearing her steady heartbeat. It's all right, Naruto-kun. Just calm, relax, spoke Kurenai in a motherly-like tone. He looked up into her eyes to see them filled with care for him. After several minutes of talking, the two groups said their goodbye as Naruto was now happy to find 3 girls, and a dog to call friends. Naruto looked up into the sky to see it was midday, so he went back into town grabbing his ryo he had found on the ground earlier tightly. The boy looked through the city till he found the ninja shop. He breathed in deeply before pushing the door open. A bell rang out that the door had opened. "Please give me 1 second, and I'll be right with you," spoke a rather large man with a brown curly beard and curly brown hair. He wore a white shirt with a black vest, and dark olive green pants with a set of brown boots. The man spun around, and upon seeing the young Jinchuriki his smile faded into a scowl filled with anger. "Get out," spoke the man quietly at first before shouting the words. His brown eyes were filled with malice as he grabbed a sword from the nearby rack of weapons, and ran after the boy at a surprisingly fast pace. However fast the man was though, Naruto was faster and had lost him. Just as he rounded a corner he saw the man standing there with a grin upon his face as he held a katana in one hand and a tanto in the other. Naruto turned around sharply to see a man wearing the traditional Konoha ninja attire with his headband covering the entire top of his head. He had wild brown hair framing either side of his face while a tuft of brown landed between his 2 eyes falling just to the bridge of his nose. However, the most distinct feature of this man was his hacking cough. "Hey little cough demon brat, cough," coughed the man as he struggled slightly to speak. "Come on Hayate, let's finish the little fox," spoke the store owner with an expression that held only happiness, and a promise of pain. The man the shop owner had called Hayate slowly drew a katana from his back, and held it firmly. He stared at the young boy with glee as he started to have a coughing fit. A blue wolf that stood in front of Naruto was snarling at the two as Hayate charged. He quickly hit the wolf in the head with the hilt of his blade, forcing him to sleep. Hayate charged forward again while shouting, "Crescent Moon Dance." His blade suddenly seemed to move slower, and the silver blade multiplied in the air. The man slashed as Naruto, leaving several deep cuts all across his body. Then Hayate kicked him against a wall just as a girl came round the corner. She had purple hair, and wore a pale mask of a cat. "Hayate, what are you doing? Why are you covered in blood?" asked the cat as she stared at the man, her hazel eyes piercing him. She then looked over to the wall to see a young boy bleeding heavily. She stared in horror at the scene before looking back at Hayate with disbelief. "This isn't what you think. He's the demon brat. I'm doing the village a favor," shouted Hayate in response to the nameless cat defensively. "How could you do this, Hayate?" spoke the woman before she suddenly knocked out the shopkeeper that was slowly approaching Naruto with his weapons raised. "I did this for the village. I did this for us, Yugao," shouted the man pleadingly as he was now face to face with the purple-haired woman. "For us? How could hurting a child help either of us?" shouted Yugao before picking up the unconscious crimson-stained boy, and the knocked-out dog. She looked back at Hayate one more time with hate in her eyes, before shunning away. Yugao, Naruto, and his dog suddenly appeared with several familiar girls. "Naruto-san, why is he covered in blood?" shouted a scared Hana as Kurenai suddenly started to use medical jutsu to heal him. "You know him?" asked Yugao to the group. "Yeah, we met him less than an hour ago. Why is he covered in blood?" asked Anko as she stared at the boy in horror. "Hayate did this," spoke Yugao calmly as the other 3 girls who were in front of a TV looked at her blankly. "You're kidding, right?" asked Kurenai, who was still using her medical jutsu. "No, he said this boy is the demon, and that he was helping the village with this." "How is he helping us?" asked Hana as Naruto's eyes suddenly fluttered open. The first thing he saw was a cat-masked woman. He instantly shot up with his back against the wall. His dog, still unconscious as the 4 members had left the beast alone, breathed silently. Naruto's eyes rested on one thing only, the mask. It brought back terrible memories of beatings and pain. The boy then let his eyes drift to see the 3 girls from earlier. One thought crossed his mind: they were working together. "I should have known better." The boy then looked around for an exit. He quickly spotted one, and rushed for his dog before anyone could respond. He grabbed Th Beast, and jumped through a window out of the Inuzuka compound. The young Naruto stopped running when he got to the forest above the heads of the 4 Hokages. He stopped just at the edge as he thought of one thing alone. He wanted to leave for at least a little while. He was going to come back, but that would be after he could protect himself. He then ran into the forest as he heard shouts in the distance. Naruto-kun, how long do you want to leave this place? Asked Kyuubi suddenly as he stopped, and put Ice Fang on the ground next to a tree. Until the start of school. I shouldn't have too many problems if I disappear till then. Okay, but if you are leaving you will need to know some skills. So let's train a little before you go, spoke the fox. How long till I can go? Asked the boy as he grew slightly frustrated. A week. Okay, let's hurry, and train me then. Alright, go back to the hideout, and start reading the scrolls. I don't know how. How to what? To read, replied the young boy as he felt the demon in his head body whatever face palm. Damn, how'd I forget about that? Asked the fox rhetorically, which Naruto picked up on. So can you teach me how to read? Course, just go back to the base, and you'll be able to read in a day. Really? Course, now just get back to the hideout, shouted Kyuubi as they returned to the plain room. When they were inside, Kyuubi started training him, only not on how to read. She taught him something that would speed his training up. She taught him Shadow Clone Jutsu. It started off with him questioning her as he thought it would start with teaching him how to read, however she taught him how to create a shadow clone. Q-chan, I got it, shouted Naruto as he finally could create several dozen shadow clones. Great job, Naru-kun. Now you need to get some rest, spoke the fox soothingly. But I want to train, shouted the blonde rebelliously. Later. Right now you need to rest before anything bad happens, spoke the fox sternly. What could possibly happen? Started the boy before he fell forward unconscious. I told you, spoke Kyuubi as Naruto appeared inside his mindscape. Okay, I got it, spoke the boy. He was tackled from behind by Ice Fang. Alpha, shouted the beast as he started to lick him uncontrollably. Okay, Ice Fang, please stop, I have some questions for you. Okay, Alpha, what do you want to know? You said you were a northern flame wolf, right? Yes, I am Alpha. What are northern flame wolves? I don't know, no one ever told me. I can shed a little light on this subject, spoke the crimson-haired beauty as she wrapped Naruto up in a hug. What is he, Q-chan? Asked the boy as he nuzzled his head into Kyuubi's double D-cup chest. A northern flame wolf is part of a species that dates back to the time of the Sage of Six Paths. Much like the 10 tails being split into 9 separate entities, there was a small species, as you can guess, called the flame wolves. These beasts were very dangerous as the power they had drove many of these loyal beasts to madness. Instead of being peaceful creatures, they turned feral, and attacked anyone on side, friend or foe. So the sage split these beasts that had the power to control all 5 elements into 4 separate entities. He created 4 new species, which were named after the 4 directions of the world: north, east, south, and west. He did this due to the affinity they had. They held the flame in their name as each, and every one of these wolves have an extremely high affinity for fire. Now a northern wolf has control over wind, south over lighting, west over water, and east over earth. But a unique thing about each is that they have their own bloodline limit, and chakra system that restores chakra. So they can actually use jutsus on their own. What are the 4 bloodline limits then? Now mind you that some clans have the same bloodline limit. With that I only know half. The western flame wolves have what people call blue fire, whereas the eastern flame wolves control lava. But let's get back on track. Before you can actually use any jutsus besides the one I taught you, you must get a handle on your chakra. So your routine will be to create 100 clones, and have them all try to walk up a tree. When they do that, have them walk on water. Then we can try other things. Until then, you will be training your body physically by doing push-ups, sit-ups, and running around the edge of the forest. How will I retain anything my clones do though? Naru-kun, I told you. When you dispel them, you gain everything they experienced as information for. So if they die, you don't. If they build muscle, you don't. You only gain the feeling of it all, but if they get tired, you are also get tired. Okay, well, I'm off to train. Not yet. Have 10 of your clones come into the base so I can have them learn to read. Okay, I'm off, shouted the boy as he woke up to see it was already midday. He grinning like crazy as he crossed his fingers in a cross and shouted, "Shadow Clone Jutsu." They all went off in their respective directions to learn everything as the real Naruto started to do push-ups and sit-ups. Time skip. A week had passed, and Naruto could now walk on water without having to think about it, and he could read better than most teens. He had also found some food in the forest, such as berries that Kyuubi had told him were fine, along with a rabbit he had cooked and eaten. So instead of a malnourished boy, he was now a healthy and extremely athletic one who no longer had trouble running. The boy walked into the base one last time before leaving. He looked around till he saw a small tear in what should have been a stone wall. He walked over to it and drew a kunai. He pressed the blade to the wall, and instantly the stone ripped. Naruto looked at it to see it was paper. So he gripped the paper and ripped it off. An opening just big enough for Naruto to crawl into appeared. He shrugged his shoulders before starting to crawl. After several minutes, it came to an opening where a large chest was in the middle. He walked to the center of the room while looking around for traps. When none had sprung, he opened the chest. He waited another second, yet still no trap, so he looked inside to see a scroll with the head of a dog on it, and a single katana. The katana was in its scabbard that was a solid black color with crimson crawling up at a curve. He picked the sword up to feel that it was a very heavy weapon. The hilt was 2 feet long. The boy pulled the scabbard off the large weapon to see a blade 5 feet in length, which was far too much for Naruto, for now. He looked at the hilt, which was wrapped in plain black cloth. The katana had a crimson rectangular handguard, and was a foot long and 6 inches wide. The blade itself had a single sharp edge colored blood red with a single strip of dark blue going up the sharp curved edge, up to the tip of the katana. The blade had the kanji crimson fang on it. The boy quickly sealed the weapon in his sealing scroll before grabbing the scroll still in the box. He opened it to see a single blurred out name on the list with contract at the top. The odd thing about the name was that it had a faint smell of blood. What is it? Thought the boy. A summoning contract. I suggest you sign your name in blood under the other name. The hand signs boar, dog, bird, monkey, and ram. The slam your hand onto the floor, spoke Kyuubi calmly as Naruto followed the directions. A cloud of smoke appeared, and when it cleared, a dog stood in front of Naruto. The two stared at each other eye to eye as they were the same height. Who are you? Spat the pure yellow wolf. Naruto, and I think I'm your summoner. Only if you can pass a test first, grinned the beast as they continued to stare at each other. Okay, what? Bring me a flame wolf, smirked the beast while thinking he would win this one. Oh, Ice Fang, shouted Naruto with a grin, while the beast had a confused look on his face. Yes, Alpha, shouted the beast as he came running into a wide-eyed yellow wolf. What? How? Shouted the beast in disbelief as Ice Fang suddenly jumped in front of Naruto in a defensive stance. Who the air you? Snarled Ice Fang as his upper lip curled back. You win this one, boy. My name is Wind Cloak, and you may now summon the Wolf Clan. Although I doubt a boy like you deserves to summon us, trailed off the yellow wolf before he disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving a dirty blonde-haired boy grinning. The boy walked out to the edge of the forest before he walked out of it into the city, followed by Ice Fang. He looked for a way out till he saw a rock on the floor, and knew just what he would do. He smiled as he picked it up. He peeked around a corner to see a single guard watching the gate. He aimed, and threw the rock at the guard, hitting her in the head. The girl on duty swung around, and raced off in the direction where she thought the rock was thrown from. As soon as she passed Naruto and Ice Fang, they ran out the gates into the forest. The next thing the four girls saw was a young dirty boy jump out a window carrying a dog under his arm. The four girls instantly darted out the broken window into the city. When they landed, sounds of glass breaking was heard under their feet. The four young girls, however, ignored the pain of the glass and chased after the boy, who was already out of sight. They jumped from building to building, trying in vain to search for the injured boy. Hana Inuzuka even got several hunting dogs to try and find him, however it was to no avail, as he was still missing. They searched well into the night, and only stopped due to the Uchiha police force telling them to stop as they were disturbing the peace. The four girls went back to their respective homes after deciding to meet up at the Inuzuka compound tomorrow to discuss their thoughts and concerns. The morning arrived all too soon for the four girls, as their thoughts had kept them from getting too much sleep. Anko, Kurenai, and Yugao were in front of the Inuzuka compound waiting. They had pressed the button to notify that they were there and waiting. The compound itself had a high rough stone wall that fenced a three-story mansion that was painted red like the clan's famous tattoos. A few more moments, and the gate opened, allowing the three girls to see Hana. The four girls walked toward each other, each one with bags under their eyes due to the lack of sleep. The four walked into the mansion, into the room that the boy was last seen in. "Any ideas on why he ran?" asked Hana as she sat in a chair. "No, he seemed perfectly fine around us three," spoke Anko as she, Hana, and Kurenai now looked at Yugao, who no longer wore the Neko mask. "I don't know, but he was fine up till he saw my mask," spoke Yugao as she showed everyone the mask. They all sat there in thought as they pondered the possibilities. They couldn't arrive to a conclusion as to why until it hit them. He was underfed and constantly injured. That meant that maybe Anbu had a hand in the beatings. Why would Anbu hurt a child though? Why would anyone for that matter? Voiced Hana. "Maybe it has something to do with what Hayate said about him being a demon brat or something," responded Yugao. "He couldn't be that, could he?" asked Kurenai with horror glued to her face. "You don't think he's the Jinchuriki, do you?" spoke Anko as everyone hung their faces lower in thought. "If he is the Jinchuriki, then why would people do this to him?" They all thought as they raised their heads with their eyes full of determination. "How about we ask some of the villagers?" suggested Yugao as everyone agreed. They stayed together as they went into a ramen stall. "Hey Tsuki, do you know a kid by the name of Naruto?" asked Hana. "Yeah, he comes around every once in a while for ramen." "Why? He's recently disappeared, and we don't know where he is." "Do you know where he is?" asked Kurenai this time. "No, I don't know where," stuttered Tsuki as the curtain behind him flung open. A little girl of about 9 walked out into the stand next to the old man. She had chocolate-colored hair, and wore the same apron and hat as her father. "Daddy, where's Naruto-kun?" asked the little girl as she looked at her father. "Ayame, please go back inside for now," spoke the old man. "Hey, Ayame, where does Naruto usually go to feel better?" Anko shouted the question calmly as she wore a grin. "Naruto-kun is usually here, or another place." "Was it the dango shop?" "No, not the dango shop. Maybe Akamaiki's know that mine not his." Responded Ayame as she started to stroke her chin in thought. "It's fine, thank you for everything, Ayame," spoke Kurenai as they walked out to find Naruto. They asked several villagers about the blonde in question, but only got responses of, "Why would you want to find that demon? It isn't time for a fox hunt." "Is it?" Or they just got plain silence. They finally gave up for the day, and left it be. After 2 weeks they went back to Ichiraku for some ramen. They entered in, and ordered several beef ramen. Ayame gave them their order before she made some light conversation. "You girls were looking for Naruto-kun, right?" asked Ayame as they were about to leave. "Yeah, why?" responded Hana. "I remembered that he likes to go to the forest behind the Hokage's monument," spoke the little girl cheerfully. The four girls grinned wildly before running out to get a ninja dog. They got the dog, and ran to the forest. Instantly, the dog caught scent of Naruto, and led them around the forest before bringing them to the south gate, and stopping. The dog barked at Hana while she stared wide-eyed. What did he say, Hana? Anko asked with a slight hint of fear in her voice. He said he left the village, spoke Hana as everyone had a look of disbelief on their faces. They quickly ran to the Hokage Tower to tell Sarutobi that their Jinchuriki is missing. When they told him about it, he laughed, and said, "Good riddance then, less paperwork for me." As the four girls held looks of horror mixed with anger as they stormed out of the office back home to weep at the loss of the little boy they barely knew. A young boy was sitting under the moonlight in a lush forest, only Wee was meditating on water. He sat there basking in the glow of the moon as quiet footsteps could be heard bringing a large beast to his side. What is it, Ice Fang? Naruto asked through his mental connection. Are you okay? I mean, I know what happened isn't the worst, but still. You doing alright, Alpha? Asked the beast, who was now 5 feet high, and 2 meters long. His pelt seemed to glow in the moonlight as the calm water was broken by another. Alpha, are you okay? Asked a yellow wolf who was the same size as Ice Fang. He is fine, Wind Cloak. I thank you very much for training Alpha and me though, spoke Ice Fang as he bowed slightly. Not a problem, it's the least we could do to amend the actions of our pack. I apologize once more for how I treated you many moons ago, spoke Wind Cloak as he let his nose touch the water's shimmering surface. The past is already gone, and nothing can be changed. You can only move ahead to try, and take your mistake to heart and fix it. The boy voiced to both beasts in their mind. I know, it's just spoke Wind Cloak as Naruto interrupted him. I know what your first summoner did, and I promise I will never betray this pack. I swear on anything you hold value to that I will die before I betray you like that, voiced Naruto as his mouth still hadn't uttered a word in 3 years. Not after the 11-year-old had experienced persecution at the hands of everyone in Suna, Kiri, Iwa, Kumo, and anywhere else he went. For some reason Lady Luck was never beside him, except if even she chose to hurt the young blonde. The boy sat up while looking into the night sky just as clouds moved in front of the moon, obscuring it. The boy held his emotionless look as he continued to stare for a while, thinking of how tomorrow would be. Today was the last day of his training if he wanted to even have a chance of graduating the academy tomorrow. He had chosen to enter the last day of the academy as very few realized all you needed to do was to pass whatever they gave for a test regardless of how old you were to become a ninja. Let's get going. I think I should get there soon, voiced the boy as he made several signs with his hands before using the reverse summoning jutsu once more to bring him in front of the gates of hell. He was now less than 100 yards from what some would call home, but he knew it as one simple thing. A lower level of hell. The young boy had traveled the elemental nations just to experience the same thing anywhere he went. Everyone seemed to be able to sense what he held, and immediately they would perform the ritual in Konohano's, the fox hunt. The boy pushed the thoughts away as he pulled a mask over his face and pulled a black hooded cloak to hide his entirely black attire. The mask he put on was that of a wolf. The mask had 4 red stripes on it, 2 on either cheek. 1 under each eye, and the other went from the front corner to the back corner of the eye. The snout of the mask had a black nose with a strip of crimson running straight up till it got to the forehead. Then it turned into a red whirlpool before going straight up again. It had 2 ears with black etched into either ear to make another set of ears. Just go to my profile for a link. The boy walked to the gate to be meted by 3 Anbu members. 1 wore a dog, the other a cat, and the last bore a tiger mask. State your business, or lose your head, spoke the dog calmly as he eyed the wolf-masked person before him as they were all about equal height, except Naruto as he was just a foot shorter than the cat Anbu. Suddenly, a blue wolf appeared from behind Naruto while eyeing them cautiously. I am this man's frickin' interpreter, spoke Ice Fang before the tiger came upon him with a tanto in hand. The beast stood still as the tiger stopped in front of him with the blade sheathed, and eyeing the beast. Please continue. Spoke the dog once more as his hand started to glow a faint blue. Alpha wants to know how the village has been since his absence. After all, he wouldn't be surprised if you yourself, dog, were to celebrate at his disappearance 5 years ago, spoke Ice Fang calmly. At this, the three Anbu looked wide-eyed at where the masked man once stood as he was not there anymore. They turned around to see him laying on a roof staring at the moon. I would take it you are Naruto then, spoke Tiger with what the boy perceived as interest. That would be correct. Now can you please either take us to the demon of a Hokage, or let the boy get ready for his bloody school? Spoke the beast as the three Anbu looked confused. School? But isn't the final exam tomorrow? Voiced the cat as she looked at Naruto with disbelief. I guarantee he will pass. Okay, then he is free to roam around, but remember tomorrow he comes to the Hokage's office after the exam, if he even passes, spoke the dog with venom in his voice as the other two continued to look at Naruto with interest. The boy stayed put, and fell asleep right there without anyone noticing. The boy woke up quickly, and then sealed his mask and cloak into a seal as he walked to the academy. He walked into the classroom as everyone eyed him curiously. Just after Naruto walked in, he was followed by Ice Fang, and a man with a pineapple-style brown hair, and a single large scar across the bridge of his nose. Who are you, and what are you doing here? Asked the man who had walked in behind a large wolf. This is Naruto and I am Ice Fang. He would like to take the stupid exam, spoke the beast calmly as everyone eyed the beast with disbelief as one boy in the center of the room stared at the dog with curiosity. Did your dog just talk? Shouted the entire class as Naruto just nodded his head. Hey Akamaru, will you be able to do that one day? Asked the boy calmly as he got a bark in reply. You smell familiar, spoke Ice Fang as he walked towards the boy with a hood over his head. Can you call him off? Asked the boy with a little fear in his voice as Ice Fang had begun to sniff the boy's head. You're an Inuzuka, aren't you? Spoke the beast as the boy nodded. Hi, I'm Kiba. The boy spoke as he held out his hand. I'm Ice Fang, remember the name little shit? Spoke the dog crudely as everyone stared wide-eyed. Well, technically you can take the exam and graduate, but is not usual. So you can take the test, but you probably won't pass, spoke the teacher. He'll pass this stupid test just fine. Oh, and Kiba, tell Hana that Naruto says, revenge is a bitch, like her, spoke the beast as they walked to a chair leaving a confused boy and class sitting there. A written test was passed out, and Naruto quickly finished it. An hour passed before the teacher came and collected the tests. He then called them to the gym one by one for a test. It was to do the body replacement, clone jutsu, and the henge. When Naruto's turn came up, he walked into the gym as he was guided by the man called Iruka-sensei by the entire class. Do the Academy 3 please, spoke Iruka as Naruto did the hand signs while Ice Fang said the words. He did the 3 easily. Okay, wait outside for the spars, spoke a man with anger. Naruto hated this man. This man was someone who constantly set up fox hunts in Konoha. He was Mizuki. He walked outside as spars started happening one after the other. Naruto waited till his name was called. He had to fight a kid by the name of Sasuke Uchiha. They both walked up and eyed each other. Hajime was heard, and Sasuke charged. Naruto stood still as Ice Fang stood next to him. You gonna move, Blondie? Shouted Sasuke as he threw a punch to Naruto's gut. As the punch approached, Naruto turned and slammed a palm into Sasuke, sending him into the ground into unconsciousness. Everyone stared wide-eyed at what the boy had just done to the academy favorite. Iruka just stared in disbelief before he managed to utter the words, "Winner Naruto," as silence followed. The two got up, and Iruka called out names of who passed, and they all went up to grab a headband, including Naruto, as he walked away to see a lilac-haired girl with lavender eyes sitting on a swing by herself. As he was about to walk over to her, he saw Mizuki walk up. He pushed chakra into his ears to listen in on the conversation. There is another way to pass Hinata, spoke Mizuki. How? Asked the girl between sobs. You can always take the backup test. What's that? All you have to do is go to the Hokage's tower, and grab the forbidden scroll, and bring it to training ground 44, and give it to me. This will show that you are worthy enough to be one of us, and you pass the test, spoke Mizuki happily while laughing at the prospect internally. Hinata just nodded before getting up, to go prepare. Naruto was walking on top of the fourth's head while debating with himself in silence. He was pacing back and forth while holding a hand to his chin, stroking his imaginary beard. What do you think, Ice Fang? Spoke Naruto through their connection. I'd say we should do it, spoke the beast lying just at the edge of the forest. Why? Asked Naruto as he stopped and stared at the lazy beast. That Mizuki guy seems suspicious, and you might be able to learn something from the scroll that the little girl is stealing. Yawned the beast as he closed his eyes. Good point, whispered out the boy as he mulled it over. After several minutes he decided it would be for the best. He quickly got up, and lightly kicked the beast awake as he walked into the forest. Ice Fang begrudgingly got up, and followed Naruto into the woods. Naruto came upon a familiar sight, and walked up to the ginkgo tree. He pulsed some chakra into it, and went down into the opening as it shut behind him and Ice Fang. Naruto looked at the untouched base that was littered with dust. He quickly made several hand seals as Ice Fang spoke wind style. Great breakthrough, causing a light gust of wind to clear the dust away into a corner where Naruto sealed it into a scroll. The boy quickly sat down, and started to unpack his dozens of scrolls. He quickly unsealed a desk, and put it in the corner of a room followed by a chair. Naruto hung dozens of seals on the walls as he painted words below the scrolls. He mulled over what he was getting himself into before he changed his gear. Naruto was now in the standard Anbu gear with his wolf mask on to hide his identity. I think this will make Mizuki a little scared, thought the boy maniacally as he quickly started to unseal several weapons. He now sported a katana strapped to his back. The entire blade was pitch black with drizzles of crimson splashed log it. He also had a single karma on either hip with holes in the mini scythe. Lastly, he had a scroll strapped to his left bicep. The boy walked out of his hideout followed by Ice Fang as they looked out across the village while Naruto grinned behind his mask. The boy waited atop the stone faces as he saw movement in the city heading to training ground 44. He grinned once more as he shushined away in a flash of dark gray mist. He was now in the center of the forest watching the little girl try practicing one of the techniques. She was having a hard time doing any of them. Midnight came around as did the silver-haired instructor. Naruto quickly masked his presence even more when he felt the man appear. Hinata, give me the scroll, spoke the man viciously as he wore a feral grin with the same look in his eye. I couldn't learn any of the jutsu, sensei, spoke the girl as she hung her head lower. The response she got was unexpected as a cackle came forth. You seriously believe that this was a test, Hinata? For a Hyuga to not realize this was a scam is extremely sad, spoke a dark voice from seemingly every direction as a mist started to roll through the forest. Who are you? Shouted the two others in the forest. It, shouted Mizuki as he threw a ball into the mist and Hinata's general location, causing a gas to seep out. Instantly, various sounds were heard through the forest as giant creatures started to attack the lavender-eyed girl. A long 16-foot python lunged at her just as Ice Fang pinpointed Hinata, and took her away. The girl looked at the beast, realizing that the back of her outfit was in the mouth of a dog, but not just an dog, no, she was in the mouth of Naruto's dog. When they sat down just outside of the compound, a tall man rushed out. Hinata, where were you? Shouted the man as a statement. Father, I failed to become a ninja, sobbed the girl as her father looked at her with disbelief. Stop kidding, Hinata. Iruka-san called me today congratulating me on your amazing work. He said he just forgot to give you this because they were out at the time, spoke the girl's father as he handed her a ninja headband. She looked at in disbelief as she hugged him. Dad, Naruto's in trouble. shouted Hinata as she explained what happened to her father. The man quickly turned, signaling to his guards to follow as several white-eyed men appeared at his side. They quickly went in the direction where Ice Fang had come from with the beast in tow. Meanwhile with Naruto, when the mist disappeared, a bloody sight could be seen. All the creatures that had been there in the fog were cut up, and bloodied. Sections of snake, tiger, gorilla, and other various creatures were strewn about in a crimson mess. In the center of the mess stood a red-painted Naruto who no longer wore his mask. "Who are you?" spoke a shock-stricken Mizuki. "Naruto Uzumaki." "Ha, the Kyuubi brat," spoke Mizuki with a wide grin as he started to state what the Jinchuriki really was. "You think I don't already know that?" spoke the boy as he hadn't moved. "Mind explaining why you talk now, and not before? Death only speaks when there is a soul to be reaped. Death is always after silence, and is followed by the hush of the dead trailing after him," spoke the boy as he looked up with an evil glint in his eye. Mizuki stared at him before laughing. After recovering, he quickly jumped down as they started to fight. Naruto swung each of his fists lightly as he continued to be beaten back. Just as the man landed a solid punch on Naruto, he erupted in a puff of smoke. "What?" shouted the man. "Whirlpool style." "Red torrent," whispered a hushed voice as a stream of water erupted from the earth wrapping around where Mizuki once stood. The blue-colored water slowly turned crimson as Mizuki could no longer be seen. Just as the ball turned crimson, the Hyugas appeared upon the bloody mess. The ball suddenly dropped, leaving bits of flesh on the soaked ground with various clothes thrown about. The tallest man looked up to see who he presumed to be Naruto just as Ice Fang appeared by the ANBU's side. "Let's go, Alpha!" shouted the beast excitedly as Naruto tossed a scroll to the man in robes. The man caught it as the boy vanished. He activated his eyes, and scanned around to see nothing. The man sighed before opening the scroll. The scroll had a note in it that said, "This is the Hokage's scroll of forbidden arts." The man nodded as he trudged back to the tower, and left it with the tiger Anbu. Naruto strolled through the city till he came upon Ichiraku. It was closed, but he still smiled at the good memories it brought back. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to see two girls standing there, one with black, the other with purple. He turned to run, but was stopped by a cat-masked Anbu, and a brunette. "Naruto, please listen to us," spoke the cat Anbu desperately. The young boy froze in fear as he knew he was surrounded. Suddenly an odd smell drifted to his nose, and seconds later Anko dropped to one knee grimacing in pain. When Naruto saw this, he realized what he smelled. "Snake," was the one word that came to the boy's mind as he vanished in a flash, appearing above Anko with an inkwell in his right hand and a brush in his left. Instantly the boy found where the mark was, and went to work on seal it. Enough for now. In a matter of seconds a seal was made on her left shoulder. Naruto flew through hand signs before Ice Fang spoke out, "Holy suppression." A bright light filled the street as Anko no longer panted in pain. The other three people that had surrounded Naruto looked at him in disbelief as he did what all of Konoha could not in 5 years in a matter of seconds. Anko looked up in just as much disbelief till he realized what he did. He stared at his hands wide-eyed before running away. As he flew from rooftop to rooftop, he mentally scolded himself for helping someone who betrayed him. He glanced behind him to see the 4 girls in hot pursuit. Just as he turned his head, he tripped, falling into the street into something soft. He put his hands to push himself up till he heard a moan. He quickly lifted himself up to see he had fallen between a woman's chest. He blushed a deep shade of red that was visible to this familiar red head in a blue kimono. "There you are, Naru-chan," yelled the woman as she hugged him, all of a sudden slamming his head back into her double Ds. Then Ice Fang landed, and shook his head as he laughed. "Q-chan, I think you're suffocating Alpha, and also just hold him the still, some girls are coming to talk to him," spoke the beast as he sat next to the two of them. "Oh, my Naru-chan has a few girls chasing him already. Geez, dear, you're such a lady killer," she teased before the four girls landed in front. Q-chan, let me go, whined Naruto as he squirmed. At this, Q-chan gasped, and hugged him even tighter as he was no longer facing her, but rather the four girls were trying not to laugh at the scene in front of them. My little Nar-chan talked in public, proclaimed Kyuubi as she held him still. They stayed like this for a little bit till they saw Anko drop to her knees. Thank you, Naruto-kun, spoke the woman on the ground as she bowed. This surprised the young man before he recollected his thoughts. Alpha wants to know why he should believe you, spoke Ice Fang as he let a little snarl out. He knew what they really did that day, but he wanted to see if they really felt that way, or if they were just going to do what his Alpha misunderstood. We never betrayed you, quickly shouted Kurenai. You didn't betray me. Then what do you call handing me over to the masked creatures? Asked the boy out loud, much to the surprise of Ice Fang and Kyuubi. You mean me? No, I swear I wouldn't hurt you, and why would any other Anbu hurt you, Naruto? Asked the cat-masked woman. You mean to tell Alpha you don't know whose lap he's sitting in, or that you never meant to hurt him, you little shits? If so, why did you bring him to that cat-masked lady? Spoke Ice Fang as he continued to play along, as it was now getting slightly hilarious for him. Whose lap are you sitting on? And no, we never brought you to her. She stopped Hayate from killing you that day. Then she brought you to us for help, spoke Hana. At these words, every gear in Naruto's mind started to click into place as the pieces of that day started to make sense now. I'm sorry then, but I still won't be able to fully trust you all, spoke Naruto as the others let out a sigh of relief. Who's she though? Asked Anko curiously while pointing at Kyuubi. Hello, I'm Kyuubi, you can just call me Q-sama, sing-songed the red-headed woman. At the mention of her being the Nine Tails, the other four tensed up. Don't worry, she won't hurt you, for now, spoke Ice Fang with a grin on his face. Wait, why do we call you Q-sama when Naruto-kun gets to call you Q-chan? Asked Anko. He's special to me, shouted Kyuubi as she kissed the boy on the cheek. Stop, Q-chan, we got to go. I need some sleep for tomorrow, exclaimed the boy as everyone realized the time. Fine, we'll talk more tomorrow, spoke Ice Fang as they all nodded, and left to get some sleep. The morning came quickly as young Naruto awoke from the base he had left more than 5 years ago, yet it was comfy, secure, and comforting. Naruto got out of bed much to his desire not to. He quickly got dressed in a dark black Anbu shirt with matching pants. Over the entire outfit he wore a black cloak with a hood. Then he left without a word, leaving his two companions to sleep the day away. He walked into a little stand that seemed to be slightly disheartened for some odd reason. He looked up to see Ayame, and old man Tuki. He smiled wide as he looked at them. They turned to the cloaked blonde, and gasped. Naruto-kun, exclaimed Ayame as she jumped over the counter, tackling the blonde with a bear hug. Hey, Ayame-chan, spoke the boy in a low voice that held happiness. Naruto-kun, where have you been? Shouted the woman with a stern look as Naruto mouthed the words "2 pork ramen" to the Tuki, who smiled wide at having the boy back. Off on an adventure, the boy shouted with a bright smile as the girl smiled back. Okay, but you better tell me about these adventures then. Food's ready, Naruto, shouted the old man from the back as Ayame got up, and brought his food to him. Naruto got to the counter, and just asked about what's been happening in Konoha. He listened intently till Ayame mentioned something about a fight in an alley with several Anbu involved. The mention of this caused Naruto to lose focus on Ayame, and to remember a similar incident. Flashback. A young boy of 9 could be seen wearing full black walking through a forest up to a walled village. The village had many mountains and hills that were only dominated by one thing: clouds. The boy stared at the clouds, and smiled as the sun was blocked from view by the clouds, cascading a hazy feel onto the village. The boy walked up to the gates. As he looked at the guards, they looked at him with curiosity. They started whispering things to one another till they nodded to each other. Please follow us, spoke a masked man who suddenly appeared behind the boy. He looked at the figure who wore a mask of a dragon. He had a hint of fear in his eyes as memories rushed through his head, yet he remained calm. Okay, spoke the boy briefly as he was led to a tower in the center of the village. As the two people were arriving just in front of the large tower, the Anbu led him to the right with the excuse of, the wreckage is not currently in the tower. The boy was led into an alley as another two people appeared. These two masked figures bore a mask of a boar and a snake. The first had long green hair while the other had long blonde hair. Join us, demon, spoke the man with the dragon as the other two girls held Naruto down. The boy struggled against the two females' vice-like grips. He looked in horror as many other masked people of varying beasts approached him. I don't want to, shouted the boy as they constantly told him to join them. Then we'll make you join us by more aggressive tactics, spoke the girl to his left that was holding him to the wall. At the bow, hearing this, he quickly let out an inaudible whistle. Instantly, a howl could be heard in the distance. The people holding him down looked in the direction of the sound while the girls loosened their grip slightly. At this, Naruto quickly broke free as he ran away. He quickly looked over his shoulder to see the masked figures giving chase. He quickly rounded a corner, knocking over a blonde girl who had her hair tied in a ponytail. Sorry, shouted the boy as he ran past the gates out of the city as he heard dozens of jutsus called out with things flying overhead such as fireballs, lightning, and waves of water. The boy ran away, ditching the Anbu as he had now gone deep within the country. He let out a sigh before he rested. Flashback end. The boy refocused on Ayame, but just before he went to talk he looked at the time to see he had to go to the academy. So with that he left the needed money on the desk as he sprinted to the academy. He got to his class just on time. He quickly took the only seat not taken in the far left corner. He sat down right behind Hinata as Iruka walked in with a big grin on his face. Morning class, spoke the teacher as everyone responded back in a similar manner. What's today's lesson teach? Asked a kid in the back of the class. Naruto just tuned them out, and looked out the window to see Ice Fang walking up with Kyuubi in tow. He grimaced, then looked at Iruka just as he said, then led by Kakashi with Sakura, Sasuke, and Sai. This was followed by a pink-haired girl screaming, "Love triumphs!" and a HNN, as well as several groans and disappointing looks. Settle down, class. Anyways, Team 8 is led by Kurenai with Hinata, Kiba, and Shino. Team 9 is led by Asuma with Choji, Ino, and Shikamaru. Your new teacher will be here shortly, finished Iruka as he looked up to see Naruto with a hand up. Yes, Naruto, asked Iruka as Ice Fang walked into the classroom. What team are Alpha and me in? Barked the dog. Oh, that well, the Hokage said to go talk to him. Something about too much evil in the tower, spoke Iruka as Naruto nodded and walked out. The boy quickly went to the tower, then into the Hokage's room. You wanted to see me? Ah, yes, due to you not having been in school as long as the others, I have decided to have you do simple D-rank missions, and to learn from various other teachers to improve your level to sufficiency. So basically, because I entered last minute, I screwed the whole amount of students up, so you had to think of an alternative, and due to being lazy, and having evil to deal with, you decided on this, because it would decrease the amount of paperwork, right? Spoke Naruto as the man just stared wide-eyed at his careful deduction. I choose to retain information regarding that, and also here are the teachers you can choose to learn from for now, spoke the Hokage as he put out 5 papers. The 5 papers had the names Anko, Ibiki, Hana, Hayate, and Guy. What would each teach me? Anko would teach stealth, survival, poisons, and how to use kunai and shurikens. Ibiki would teach interrogation. Hana would teach chakra control, medical ninjutsu, and tracking. Hayate would teach kenjutsu and gathering intel, and lastly Guy would teach you taijutsu, spoke the old man. I'll pick Ibiki as my first teacher, spoke the boy as the old man had an appalled visage. Naruto just ignored him, and picked up the paper with Ibiki written on it. The boy looked at the paper that said he could be found at the prison, so Naruto started going to the man. He walked down the dark stairs where screams of pain could be heard. Naruto walked up to an iron door, and opened it while Ika Fang spoke, "Naruto here to be taught." "Ah, so you are the student. I thought you would start with something more relaxing," spoke a man with scars covering his face. "Alpha, I leave you with this man," spoke Ice Fang as he walked out. So what do you already know about the subjects I am teaching?" asked the man. "I don't know much about interrogation," spoke the boy as the adjust smiled wide with glee. "This will be very fun," thought the sadistic man with glee. Time skip. Naruto walked out of the prison again as he had finally finished his course with Ibiki, and he was slightly sad at this. He now saw the man as more of a father figure he never had. A messed up and sadistic father, but a father nonetheless. Ibiki and Naruto had grown close through the inflicting pain upon prisoners, and gathering intel on what Kakashi looked like without his mask on. Unfortunately, he never figured out what was hidden beneath the man's mask, but he figured he's find out one day. The boy walked up to the Hokage's tower as he was ready for another teacher. He walked in to find the Hokage sitting in his seat signing papers that seemed to grow by the second. The man was sweating rivers at how much of an exercise he was getting by just signing things. The man looked up and handed the boy a stack of 7 papers while he said, "Choose one," and got back to signing papers that were starting to touch the ceiling. The papers Naruto looked at had asterisk Yugao, Kenjutsu and speed training, Hana, chakra control, tracking, and medical ninjutsu, Kurenai, genjutsu and chakra control, Kakashi, elemental ninjutsu, Gai, strength training, speed training, and taijutsu, Hayate, kenjutsu and intel gathering, and Anko, poisons, stealth, and survival, written on the papers. "Hokage, I'll choose. Hokage, I'll choose. Hey, Alpha, is it time to choose the next Ing teacher?" "Yeah, why do you ask, Ice Fang?" "'Cause it's my Ing turn to choose, and we need to go see Hana," shouted the beast. "Fine. You heard us, Hokage." "Ah, okay, I'll inform her," spoke the old man in a worn-out tone as if he was being hypnotized by the work in front of him. The boy looked at him skeptically before beginning to walk out. "Wait, Naruto, I have one question for you," spoke the old man in a deadly serious tone as Naruto stopped, and looked back at him. "Yes. What restaurant would you suggest for really good food?" asked the man as the wolf and boy both fell over. "Ichiraku's," spoke the boy as he ran out to escape any more stupid questions. "I thought so," spoke the old man darkly as he wore cynical grin. Naruto was walking down the road at a very leisurely rate as he went a sudden gust of wind pushed him forward, slightly knocking him over. He looked up to see flashes of black fly forward. "What was that about? Beats the ing shit out of me," responded Ice Fang as they started to walk to Ichiraku for some ramen. When they finally got there, they were greeted by orange and red instead of a calm busy stall. Smoke billowed from the flames as a girl no older than 19 came stumbling out calling for her grandfather. She looked around till she saw Naruto. "Naruto-kun, please save my grandfather," cried the girl as the restaurant was being burned to the ground while tears poured from her eyes till she finally. The young boy looked on in horror as someone he cared for like a dad came running out in flames. The old man could be seen swatting himself and trying to put the flames out as he suddenly stopped, and then fell to the floor in a heap of burning ash. The boy slowly began to cry till he heard shouts from nearby. He turned in hope of having help to put the fire out. "There's the demon," shouted one woman as a horde followed behind her. They came bearing clubs, knives, broken glass bottles, and various other weapons. "Get him," shouted another in the crowd as they charged the boy. "Ice Fang, put her somewhere safe," shouted the boy as he sprinted away while the wolf jumped from roof to roof with the unconscious woman on his back. All the while Naruto was jumping from shadow to roof and back trying to hide. He finally lost the villagers, so he hid in his base he had before he left the village. "I'll be safe here," thought the boy in comfort as an explosion was heard behind him. He looked over to see several ninja and villagers walking through smoke where the entrance would have been. They all wore sick grins as they walked towards the scared boy. Each person holding a weapon of sorts. They beat him viciously, leaving him drenched in his own blood in a near-death situation. He slowly drifted into a coma as he heard footsteps getting louder with each passing moment. The boy descended into darkness with one thought on his mind. This all happened because I spoke. This all happened because I told someone something they wanted. My own mouth betrayed me, thought the boy as he kept reciting it in his mind, slowly thrusting his heart into darkness. The boy woke up, and slowly looked himself over to see that he was covered in bandages. He looked to the side to see Kyubi sitting against a wall. He looked at her gratefully before he stood up. He slowly walked forward, and looked around. He looked for several minutes till he found a black board with a small amount of chalk. He picked them up, and slowly trudged out as the sun bore upon his figure. He looked at the rising sun with an emotionless expression adorning his face. His eyes held look of sorrow as he trudged into town with his black robe hiding his cut-up and crimson-stained clothes. The boy walked up to the old burned stall to see it was now ashes. The boy had a far-away look in his eyes as he crouched down and grabbed a handful of ash before a single tear fell from his eye. This is all because I spoke a single word, thought the boy as sadness washed over him. He quickly sealed away the handful of ashes before walking away as a single figure followed him. The boy walked around as he had noticed the figure following him since a few moments after he had sealed the ashes away. He quickly rounded a corner as he stopped, suddenly unsealing a single kunai from a seal on the inside of his robe, much to his amusement at the thought of irony. If you don't get the irony, then go read some other fanfics for the actual irony. As soon as the figure rounded the corner, Naruto grabbed the figure with the kunai to the person's neck. The figure stopped abruptly as not to get their throat cut. "It's me, Hiyashi," spoke the man with a slight amount of surprise in his voice as he slowly pulled the hood back to reveal his face. Naruto took a step back in response as he eyed the man with an expressionless look. Naruto quickly scribbled the words, "And why were you following me?" onto the board. "Why did you save my daughter? We never did a thing to help you, yet you helped her anyways," spoke Hiyashi coldly as he examined the buy. "It was for person gain," wrote the boy on the board. "Personal gain. So you didn't do any of that, because of any thoughts or other motives?" questioned the man with a raised eyebrow. "None whatsoever. Anyways, bye," wrote the boy as he quickly disappeared in a shushin. "Why did he talk to me through writing though?" the man questioned himself before walking back towards his mansion. The young boy robed in black walked around till he came back to the destroyed hideout he used as a kid. He looked at it with sadness as the events filtered through his mind once more. He knew they hated him, yet never once before had they actually hurt someone else. Naruto clenched both fists in rage as his mind began to focus on the betrayal of the Hokage. He had to make the Hokage pay, and he knew just how to do it. Naruto was walking back to his old broken hideout as Kyubi came out. She looked at him with concern at seeing him out and about, but what she was more worried about was his emotional standpoint. "Are you okay, Naru-kun?" "I'm fine," wrote the boy as he walked past her. He walked straight to the back wall, and performed some hand signs before thrusting his hand onto the wall. It opened slightly to reveal the old chest he once found when he was younger. He had chosen to put it here for security reasons. He walked up to the chest, opened it, and pulled out several vials of red liquid. He popped the corks off of the 5 test tubes, and slowly smelled each and every one of them. He capped 4 out of the 5, and drank the one he left open. His eyes flickered red slightly, and then returned back to the sky blue color. "That time again?" questioned Kyubi with a sad look on her face. Naruto's only reply was a mere nod of his head before he walked out of the base. When he got out, he whistled, and the next thing he knew, Ice Fang was behind him with a questioning look. Naruto turned around to see a little girl no older than 10 on the floor asleep. He walked up to her, and slowly started to rub her hair gently. The girl smiled slightly in response to this as if she felt happy. Naruto smiled slightly before remembering what happened to the one this little girl called her grandfather. Naruto picked the little girl up, and brought her over to Kyuubi, who seemed to understand what he wanted. So, Naruto walked over to Ice Fang, and patted his head, earning a look of happiness from the wolf. The young blonde boy then grabbed a handful of ash from his seal inside his cloak, and brought it up to Ice Fang's nose to sniff. The dog looked at his alpha questioningly before nodding. "What did you want to learn from this?" asked the beast curiously. Naruto resealed the ash before writing, "Who do you smell that you have smelt on my clothes before?" Asterisk. The only familiar smell was that of a man's. "Follow me," wrote the boy as he started running back to the burnt-down stall. When they got there, the boy immediately started to dig through the ash, and came across 2 burnt chef hats. He brought the 2 to the wolf, who sat a few meters away. "Only one of them were here," replied the beast as he swiped his nose to clear it of the foul stench of burnt flesh. Naruto's eyes immediately lit up. He pulled his board out and asked who was here. Asterisk. "The man from earlier." "Why?" asked the wolf. Naruto merely sighed in relief. He didn't know where she was, but she was more or less alive at the moment. He still felt sad that he had lost the closest thing he ever had to a father, but was happy he hadn't lost a Yame. Naruto looked at the scorched building one last time before deciding he needed to start going to the classes he had with Hana. He didn't want to go, but he knew Ice Fang needed someone to spend time with besides his alpha. Naruto continued walking down the street deep in thought, not noticing 3 people walk up right beside him. "You okay, Naruto-kun?" asked a familiar voice as Naruto looked up to see Kurenai, Anko, and Hana wearing concerned faces. "I'm fine," wrote the blonde, accompanied by a sad smile. "Naruto-kun, does this have to do with the fire?" inquired Anko as Naruto visibly tensed. The boy shook his head as he calmed down to walk normally, much to the ire of the 3 women. "Naruto-kun, you can trust us, after all. Start training in 4 days, spoke Hana. Stop trying to pry into Alpha's business, you little shits," shouted Ice Fang as the 3 girls looked at the beast with a slight amount of agitation. "You'll get used to his choice of words. Fine, Naruto, but you better show up at my compound in 4 days, okay?" said Hana as Naruto nodded in response before the 2 groups split apart. Naruto was walking down the road till he realized he needed to start doing missions. As much as he hated the fact he had to do them for the villagers, but he needed the money. So, he walked into the Hokage's tower to gain the glare of the receptionist, but merely shrugged it off. He quickly went into the Hokage's room, much to the old man's surprise at seeing him. He walked over to a small cabinet in the corner, and grabbed a random D-rank mission from the shelf, and brought it to the Hokage. The man nodded, and Naruto walked out, still leaving the Hokage with a fish out of water jutsu active. The boy walked out, and looked at the mission. It said to go to the large farm on the outskirts of town, and pull the weeds out. The boy sighed at the knowledge that he had to do at least 20 of these stupid missions. Naruto walked to the farm, and knocked on the door. As the door opened, an old woman was revealed with a scowl. "How can I help you?" asked the woman with venom in her voice. "I'm here to pull the weeds." Asterisk. "Not a chance, demon. You would probably poison our crops, or you might even taint the land, making it stop growing things. I'm here for the mission you requested," wrote the boy with a stern glare upon his face. "And I said no. Get the hell out, you brat. I am here for my mission." Asterisk. "I don't care," shouted the woman as she opened the door, and backhanded the blonde. The boy turned his head back, and glared daggers at the woman. He spat at her bare feet before walking around a corner. Once out of sight, he made several hand signs before transforming into a brown-haired boy who looked constantly tired. He then walked up to the door, and knocked on it to have an angry-looking old man answer the door, this time while shouting, "We said to leave us the hell alone, demon." Then when he saw Naruto disguised, he apologized, and led him out to the farm, and watched as he pulled the weeds. Several hours passed till Naruto finished the job. He got the family to stamp the folder as Th Boy Shushine to the Hokage, and threw it onto the table. The man looked at it with disgust before paying the young boy 10,000 ryo. The boy looked at the money, grabbed it, and then walked out. He was walking back to the broken hideout here he last saw Kyuubi. He arrived to see her awake, and tending to the now awake brown-haired little girl. She looked at Naruto with a face that hinted a little fear before Kyuubi started to rub her head, and told her he was a friend of hers. Her demeanor then changed her to a happy face as she ran over to the boy, and hugged him. Naruto smiled at the girl who was less than a head smaller than he, before he felt sick to his stomach. He grimaced in pain, before clutching it. "Naru-kun, what's wrong?" shouted Kyuubi as she ran to his side. The boy started coughing viciously before turning over, and coughing blood out onto the grass. "The second vial?" asked the crimson-haired woman as Naruto nodded while still coughing up a storm of red. Instantly, the woman dashed to the base, and grabbed the vial with the number 2 on it, and ran out. She sat the boy up, and uncapped the container. She then poured it down the boy's throat as he tried his hardest to not cough. The boy drank it as he grimaced from the horrible taste. He coughed a little more, but this time red didn't fly from his mouth. After a minute he stopped coughing, and started to breathe properly. He looked up at the sad-faced fox to see her near tears. "Naru-kun, I think it's almost time," whispered the woman. The boy looked up at the woman and smiled before bringing up the board with 2 more days written on it. The kitsune smiled at him before smiling, bending over, and kissing him on the forehead. "Okay, but only because you asked, Naru-kun," the woman whispered into his ear seductively as his eyes drooped shut, letting sleep take him once more. Naruto woke up as light beat upon his eyes. He opened them to see a redhead snuggled up to him. Today was the last day, no 12 hours he could touch her in this realm. All because of the stupid condition. He was brought out of his thoughts as he felt her grip tighten on him, and her face squint. She whimpered subtly as he snuggled closer to her, which seemed to relieve the girl as her face switched to a comforted one. He smiled at her, then wandered back to the events of the last few days. He had wanted to be with her as much as possible, so they had decided she would help him on his missions. Which as of now he had now 11 D-rank missions under his belt thanks to his shadow clones. So he was now eligible for a C-rank mission if accompanied by a sensei who gave their recommendation. Naruto knew that tomorrow he would start training with Hana, but he still wanted to spend time with Q-chan. That's when a pair of rubies fluttered open, and stared lovingly into a pair of sapphires. The owners smiled at each other till, much begrudgingly, they got up to get ready for this evil day. Naruto quickly got up, and went over to the last vial on the table. He uncorked it, and swiftly drank it. He looked back at the fox with eyes of sadness. "Oh come on Naru-kun, you know this would happen. This only means you need to get some more from her." "I know, I just wanted to spend more time with you Q-chan. Asterisk. Break up the love fest please. We need to get to work on training Alpha," spoke Ice Fang as he approached the two. "He's right dear, we need to train you some more. Give me an hour. I'm almost done with this seal," wrote the boy as he went to a desk with an inkwell, a feather, a knife, and a scroll with many intricate designs swirling about. An hour passed quickly as Naruto looked at his creation with pride. With one thought flowing in his mind. Soon I can take my revenge. "Hurry up," shouted an angry wolf as Naruto put the scroll down carefully, and sprinted out. When Naruto got to the 2 waiting creatures, he paled when he saw Kyuubi holding an all too familiar grin. "Naru-kun, it's time to amp up the weight again," spoke Kyuubi in a bittersweet voice. At this Naruto started sweating bullets as he approached the crimson-haired beauty. The woman quickly wrapped her hands in a cloak of red chakra before putting the 2 on his chest, then each arm, and finally ending on both legs. Naruto lifted one leg, and fell over. "How much now?" Asterisk. "Don't worry Alpha, we only doubled the weight," spoke a certain beast with an excited bark. "Damn you both." Asterisk. Naruto slowly recovered, and stood up somehow before walking over to hug Kyuubi once more. They hugged each other tightly before they let go. Okay, so you don't have to, but I think it helps enhance the feeling of this part. Start song falling inside the black skillet. The day went on without much happening before 11 hours passed. Standing on the fourth's head is a crying blonde being held by crimson-haired woman caressing his head, and speaking soothing words into his ear. Don't worry, you'll see me later. I just need to sleep for a while till I get back. Exactly. If only I didn't have to deal with this when you came out, then we could be together forever. Asterisk. But just think, Naru-kun, if you didn't have to deal with the demonic urges, you would die whenever I came out, spoke the woman as her body flickered for a second. I know, that's why I sent her a letter yesterday, wrote the still crying boy as Kyuubi's body began to flicker more often till it began to just fade. Just remember that I love you, duh, spoke the woman before she fully phased out of existence, leaving a boy howling on the floor. Song end. Naruto slowly stood after he recovered from his loss of a friend for a good while. He looked up to the sky in anguish as he didn't want his foxy friend to leave. He knew she had to, lest he lost control of his urges. Those damn stupid demon urges. Why did he or any Jinchuriki have to get them with this technique? Yes, he got demonic urges of the vampiric kind whenever his biju got pulled out of him. It was either turning slightly demonic to have a link with her when she was out, or to be on the floor dead with her free to roam. He obviously chose the former as he didn't want to die just yet. He looked back to the city he despised as he went back inside the forest. He got back to his base as he started to whittle wood in the shape of a woman. It took him quite a while till he had finished his already nearly finished full-sized sculpture of voluptuous woman due to the fact he took great care to etch every possible detail into the sculpture. He looked at his creation with a smile. Soon, very soon, went through his head as he let it rest against a wall. All he had to do now was get some paint, a blood seal, and lastly a certain type of chakra. He knew how to get the paint easily and he could create the blood seal even easier. It was just a matter of time till he got the chakra he needed. He walked into the forest, and gathered a multitude of colors varying from red to blue, black to white, and green to purple. He then went back to the base, and scribbled on a scroll to create a blood seal. He painted the wooden sculpture with red hair that fell to her waist. Two patched one on either side came in front of her hair in the shape of fangs, and a single stray tuft was tied to her right side by a green pin, making it slightly thicker than the left. She had amethysts for eyes with small onyx gems for pupils. She also had a button nose accompanied by thin sharp eyebrows. Lastly, she wore a green dress over a white shirt. Naruto backed up from his painted sculpture, and smiled. Northwest, he just had to wait till it dried, which would be a good several hours. He looked outside to see the moon nearing its peak, and so he decided now would be a good time to let sleep wash over him once more. The following morning he got up bright and early as Ice Fang was already up, and hunting for their breakfast. Naruto quickly checked to see if the paint was done drying to see it wasn't quite done, but it was close. The blonde sighed, and then turned to see Ice Fang dragging a juvenile deer in. After the two had eaten their fill, they rushed out to go to the Inuzuka compound lest they feel the wrath of another woman. He hated how they all seemed to hit so hard. It was as if you were being hit in the head with an anvil, although that's only the weak ones. He never could piss off Kyuubi, or else she might seriously drop a mountain on his head. He shrugged it off as he arrived at the building that Hana had described to him. He rang the doorbell on the old-looking house. A creak could be heard as an older woman with short spiky black hair similar to Naruto's own hair, two red fangs on either cheek, and black vertical slits for eyes. She smiled at him with a feral grin. "You must be Naruto," stated the woman as she looked at him closely, losing her smile as it was replaced with a curious look. The boy merely nodded in response to the woman as she led him into the house, and told him to wait as Hana was in a meeting for a bachelor. A few minutes later, screaming could be heard, followed by the sound of glass shattering and objects being thrown. Moments after the sound, a shinobi within glasses was sprinting out of the house as fast as he could as an angry-looking Hana dashed out with a tick mark on her head. "Get back here, you damn pervert, and take what's coming to you!" shouted Hana as she stopped just in front of her house. "Hana, Naruto is waiting for training in the living room," shouted Hana's mother as the girl had a surprised look on her face. She suddenly heard barking, and turned around to see her dog playing with Ice Fang. She smiled, then remembered Naruto, and walked back into the house. She got in the house to see a calm-looking boy staring at her. "Hi, Naruto-san." "Hello, Hana-san," wrote the boy, much to Hana's surprise, but she didn't pride you to knowing how she, and most other people felt about it. "How are you doing?" "Fine. Can we start training?" Asterisk. "Excited are we?" "No, I merely wish to finish the training to take on more missions," wrote the boy as Hana was slightly angered that she didn't get the reaction she hoped for from her teasing. "Okay, let's get to work then," spoke Hana, and with that the day went on quickly as Naruto did the chakra exercises shown to him. She was surprised he knew them, and could already do them. So she started to teach him some basic tracking methods. After the day of 4-hour training was over, Naruto left, and took Ice Fang with him, who was very happy at meeting his friend once more over the many years. When they got home, Naruto looked at the paint to see it dried. He smirked as he put the blood seal on the abdomen of the wooden sculpture. He made several hand seals, and then passed out. He woke up with several different colored chakras in front of him. He saw light blue, dark blue, and finally red. He stared at the three intently till he grabbed the dark blue one, and closed his eyes. He awoke back in the regular world with one hand covered in dark blue. He quickly drew blood on his other hand, and swiped it across the seal before putting his chakra-covered hand onto the blood. The seal glowed red before it faded. He smiled, then grabbed the seal he made yesterday, and put it over the bloodied scroll. He took a step back, and smiled. The wooden sculpture seemed to become less like wood, and more like a real woman. Suddenly the woman fluttered her eyes open. "Where am I?" asked the woman. "Welcome home, Mom," wrote the boy before wrapping his mother in a tight hug. "Who are you?" asked the red-headed woman, who the blonde was hugging just as Ice Fang walked up to see the two. "Alpha, who is she?" asked the beast as Naruto let go of his mother, and looked at the wolf. "This is my mother Kushina. Mom, this is my friend Ice Fang," wrote the boy as he passed slightly, earning a chuckle from the sailor-mouthed wolf. "Son? When did I ever have a son?" asked the woman, instantly breaking the boy's heart. "Mom, it's me, Naruto. You know yours and the fourth son." Asterisk. "The fourth, as in Minato?" asked Kushina, earning a nod from the boy and dog. "Why would I have had a son with that asshole?" asked the woman, earning a single grin at the language and a confused blonde. "But you're my mother. Remember, you died when Q-chan attacked the village." Asterisk. "Q-chan? You mean Kyuubi?" "No, he's talking about some other nine-tailed fox," spoke Ice Fang sarcastically, earning a tick mark on Kushina's forehead. "When did Kyuubi attack, and why? She would never do that." "Wait, where am I?" asked the woman, earning 2 face faults due to just now realizing she didn't know where she was. "Do you not remember having a child, Mom?" Asterisk. "No, I never would have had a child with that bastard, and I definitely haven't done the deed yet," spoke the redhead shamelessly. "I think something's wrong," spoke the young boy in his head. "I know there ink is. I can smell ink shit on her, active ink." "What do you mean, Ice Fang? Someone put a seal on her ink memories or something, and she definitely has a problem for not remembering when the Kyuubi ink attacked, or your birth. Do you think I messed up on the seal? Not a ink chance. I had Yorick the shithead look it over while you were out, and even he said it was going to ink work properly." "How did he know it would work?" "We kinda tested it out, twice. You know how I feel about you touching my stuff." "Well, oh well, get thee over it. Fine, we'll finish this later." Naruto, that name sounds familiar, spoke the redhead to herself. "Yeah, you named me after a fishcake, Mom." Asterisk. "Hey, don't get sassy with me, kid. Although, that does sound like something I would do," spoke the red-headed woman as she struck a thinking pose. I think we'll need Kyuubi in order to see the seal. Well, you'll need to wait until she wakes up, Alpha. I know, thought the boy as he looked at Ice Fang. I still don't believe you, boy, spoke Naruto's mom as she came out of her thoughts. It's fine, just stay with Ice Fang until Kyuubi wakes up. Asterisk. What do I mean? I can just talk with her. Give me a minute, spoke Kushina as she sat down to meditate. You won't get anywhere with that method, spoke Ice Fang as the redhead's eyes shot open. Why can't I talk to Kyuubi? Asked the woman in worry. Because she is inside of me, wrote the boy as he lifted his shirt and channeled chakra through his body, making the seal on his abdomen. So you might be telling the truth then, but how am I alive? I revived you with the seal on your abdomen, wrote the boy as he placed his hand on her shoulder and pushed his chakra into her. Then the seals glowed through her shirt to reveal his words of truth. So there is some truth to your words. Alright then, I'll listen to you for now, but I warn you now, you still tread on thin ice. As long as I have the chance, wrote the boy as he began to walk away. Where are you going, Naruto-san? He's got training with Hana the shithead. Oh, okay, spoke the redhead as the blonde just walked without looking back. He was still heartbroken over his mother not knowing who he was, but he was happy to at least see her. So with a sigh he trudged on to the Inuzuka compound with a purpose to train, and to find Ayame. Naruto quickly arrived at the compound as he nearly sprinted there, not from excitement, but rather to escape the stares of the public. Their stares were slowly driving him to madness. He was nearing his breaking point once more, and he hadn't even been in the city for a full year. The only thing keeping him sane is the thought that it was all a mere test. Yes, a test to see if he had what it took to fulfill his plan, and he knew he would. Whether it took a day, a week, or a year, all depended on when she would come back. He only needed to wait until she got over their deaths, whether by time, or from a push. He was brought out of his musings when the large building appeared in front of him. He walked up, and knocked to have it opened by Hana. She smiled at him, before fully opening the door. Alright Naruto-kun, you ready for your first real mission? Asked the brunette as she took a step out, and closed the door behind her. What do you mean by real mission? I've done those poor excuses of D ranks. Asterisk. Well, you're in luck, cause we're going to be doing your first C rank mission. Here's the details. Be at the gate in an hour, spoke the woman right before she handed him a folder, and then disappeared back inside. The boy looked inside the folder to see it was a joint operation between him, Hana, and Team 8. The mission was to escort a man back home in Wave Country, and guard him as he was building the bridge. He smiled at finally having a chance to do an actual mission, and to top it off he would be able to see Tsunami again. Hey Ice Fang, I'm going to be gone for about 2 weeks, inform mom of it, and make sure she